What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Head Ass Garage. We're going to be doing some detailing on my parents' 2013 Dodge Durango, and it is finished in Maximum Steel, which is a pretty high impact Dodge color. It's got a lot of depth to it, so it should be a really good paint for us to do some detailing on, but we're just gonna, I guess, walk you through the steps of detailing, show you how to detail at home.
And in this video, we're gonna show you how to do it with basic-ish hand tools. We have an orbital buffer, obviously, for the circle scratches. But other than that, we're using basic stuff that you can get at the auto parts store.
You guys saw the products that we used. We'll be walking through as well some of the more important products that we end up applying. We're using a lot of Meguiar's stuff because Marcus and I are both massive fans of Meguiar's, and we can confidently endorse any single one of their products and highly recommend using almost any of them. Let's get into it, and you guys can follow along at home. So you saw us just outside washing the car. We went ahead and used just a foaming soap for it and wash it down, just a simple car wash. And then I ended up using some of that Meguiar's non-acid wheel and tire cleaner on the wheels while we were out there. It's super easy to use, spray on, spray off. And so now we're gonna go ahead and hop into the clay barring, and Marcus can tell you a little bit about clay barring and why you'll need to, or what you should look for if you need to clay bar.
So one of the biggest things that you're gonna look for if you need to clay bar your car is when it's wet, run your finger down the paint. If you feel rough edges and little bumps in it, then you need to clay bar. And it'll feel like very, very fine grit sandpaper on the paint. Here we have two. We have the Meguiar's and then we have a Mother's clay bar. We've had the Mother's clay bar for a little longer and it's pretty torn up already.
Yeah, she's kind of spent, but
yeah. We've been using this Meguiar's pad for probably 4 weeks to a month now, and it's still in the same shape it was when I got it. So
the Mother's clay bar works really well. I've used it on a lot of cars. However, one thing that I will say is it's a lot slower at what it does than the Meguiar's clay bar. Marcus and I are always gonna recommend everything Meguiar's. If you can get the Meguiar's clay bar, do it. It'll save you more time, and it's just a better feeling compound. Clay bars essentially just remove surface contaminants so that you can get a smoother finish on your paint and then actually apply your polish and your wax afterwards to make sure that your paint is protected well and that there's nothing trapped underneath it or sitting on the paint that can damage it. Okay, so do you want to explain real quick why you have the bucket there?
So the reason why I have the bucket here is if you're wiping just the regular clay bar on your car with no lubrication, you're gonna end up just scratching it more. And with the lubricant, it helps the pad glide along the panel, making your job much, much, much easier. Because if I take this, I set it over here, you see how it doesn't move as easily? That's not what
What you want.
You want to be able to glide and get all the surface contaminants off the paint.
And this is just a bucket of water. There are some people that sell like spray-on solutions and those sort of things to lubricate it for you, but we've always found that water works. Just make sure that it's properly lubricated before you start using your clay bar. Otherwise, that clay bar is not going to do you any favors on your paint.
And something that I do also, just to help make sure you get full coverage while you're clay barring is you go in a crosshatch pattern. So you go in one pass going up and down through the panel, and then once you're done with that, you do it this way through the panel. And something else that you must do after you're done clay barring is you're gonna have to re-wax or polish the car, because when doing this, it strips all of that stuff off of the paint.
Yeah, so any protection that you do have on there is no longer going to be on there.
And see, now when I rub my hand down this, I don't feel any of those little speckles in the paint. It's just a smooth pass. Okay, so for on this section, I took my finger and I took the flat part of my index and I rubbed it down the door, and I noticed that the side panels themselves do not need to be clay barred. But the spots where the panels are more flat, so along the window line here, and then along this body line right here, I felt roughness. So I'm not gonna clay bar the whole door. I'm just gonna do the top and then just the pieces that need it.
Another thing that you can use clay bars for is for water spots and stuff like that. Water spots are a huge pain to get out, and if you live somewhere like we do, we have incredibly hard water. So when those water spots sit on there, they are very hard to get off, and essentially the only thing that you're really going to be able to use would be a clay bar to get that off. So this is the polish compound that we're going to be using.
And we have two pads for today. We have a medium to light cutting pad, because this hood has circle scratches all over it. This is gonna help cut in and make those disappear. And then I have a black finishing pad that we're gonna use with the polish to put on top of this compound, and it'll shine it up and circle scratches will be no more. So what I'm doing here is when you first apply product to a buffer, you just wanna tap it on the surface, because if you just turn it on and slap it on there, you're gonna throw product all over the car, all over the windshield. I've done it before. I like to apply a small spritz of water to it so that you don't have problems with it getting stuck or movement issues.
Yeah, the polish, if it is out and not treated for too long, it can dry up pretty quick.
Another one of the things you want to be aware of when you're using a buffer like this is if you keep it in one place for a long time, you can scar the paint or burn the paint, as some call it, over time. And once you burn paint, it's really hard to restore it once you burn it.
If you don't have a buffer, you can still use your hand.
It just takes much longer.
Takes much longer, and the quality of the work is not going to come out as good. If you can use an orbital buffer or any buffer of that nature, I would highly recommend it. So what you can see Marcus doing now is just rubbing the polish in. You don't need to with the buffer. You can see this is the part that we have buffed, but we haven't rubbed in. You don't need to rub it all the way in with the buffer. You just need to get really good coverage, make sure the polish has covered any areas that have scratches or circle marks, or any area that you want to polish. With that, you can rub it in with your hand, as Marcus is doing right now.
And if you see, like when you're rubbing in the polish, that there are still scratches that you want to get off, just reapply the polish and go at it again. You can do it as many times as you need to.
Rinse and repeat until the product is how you like it. That's something else, man. That's that depth we were talking about. So we just went and picked up this finishing polish. You can find it at any old parts store. We just got one from our local AutoZone. This is what we're using, again, Meguiar's, because we love every single one of their products. And we've gone ahead and taped off half of the hood so that you can see what it looks like before polish. And so this is just wash and clay bar versus this side, which will be polish. All right, so you guys can literally see the line where the polish was before the tape. And look at the difference between the two sides. You got all these swirl marks on this side. Paint still looks decent, but just, come on, dude. Come on. There's a full line running where the tape was, and oh my gosh, the mirror finish is incredible. Perfectly.
Hello.
Wow. This next product I'm gonna use is Meguiar's Back to Black. It's a plastic conditioner and it just restores a lot of the color and any faded trim. She's very faded. So I'm gonna use some of this Back to Black and see what it does. As you can see, we just applied the plastic conditioner to this and the trim just looks so much better. It looks new. It actually looks like there's a little bit of moisture in it. Just gonna repeat this on all of the plastics around the car. So here you can clearly see the difference between the treated side with Back to Black and the conditioned side versus the regular side. The regular side just looks a lot more dull. It's honestly gray and not black. So your Back to Black will not only restore a lot of color and hydration inside of the plastic itself, but it'll also clean it as you go. Now that Marcus and I are finishing up the first layer of polish all the way around, as well as the second layer of finishing polish, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to this Meguiar's Hybrid Ceramic Detailer. I'm excited to use it. We're choosing to use this and opt out of the wax because it does similar things. They're both there for protectant. Helps the water to bead off of the car, so it's really easy to use. Spray on, wipe in, wipe off. So similar to wax, this is actually really good for protecting your paint. It doesn't finish your paint as well as wax would. We chose to do this to get more paint protection as opposed to finish because the car already looks like a mirror.
All right, so now I'm gonna show you the real reason why we put Meguiar's Ceramic Detailer and ceramic waxes on our cars.
Here, my S2000 has some miserable paint. Notice how it all laminates. It sticks to the car and the rundown trails are incredibly streaky. It's not a good look. However, the car itself is clean. I just washed it yesterday, so 2 days ago. Still very clean and you can see it laminate. Whereas when we move over to the treated fender, all runs off and look at that.
Completely dry.
It's not laminating anymore. There is no water there at all. All right, and with that, guys, we are finished up detailing the exterior of this car. Look at that, guys.
And granted, the paint isn't perfect. There were circle scratches all over this car.
This is my parents' car. We do not take phenomenal care of the paint on these cars, and we still managed to pull this out of that. So there are some circle scratches that were pretty deep cut. Overall, I'd say I'm pretty happy with our work.
I am too. I'm really happy with it. For a daily driver, this is perfect.
Right, and
You can't get much better.
with the ceramic coat, with the polish, with all of that, this is gonna like make the paint at least be protected for months to come. Probably 4 to 6 months. So.
Yes, sir.
Woo, man.
Now that you've seen everything, we're gonna go through the steps of how to make it like this.
Just to kind of close out the video to give you an idea of what to do in order, just to recap it and cover it once again.
Something that I like to do personally is I clean the rims first, because when you wash the car, of course, everything's gonna fall on them. So I put soap on them first and then I wash them off. Then you wash the rest of the car. You could clay bar in a couple of different ways right after that. You can clay bar it as there's soap on it, but you just wanna make sure that there's no contaminants still in the paint. If there's still soap on it, that's not gonna be a very big deal. After you've dried it off and everything, then you get a bucket of water like we did and do the parts that need it separately. After that, you dry off the car again if you do the bucket clay bar method, and then you can start your cut. For us, we used a medium cut pad and a medium polish from Meguiar's.
Again, we're always gonna recommend everything Meguiar's.
Yep.
And then we went ahead, did the finishing cut as well. To finish it off and give it that look that it really needs. Typically after you're done with the finishing polish, you would use a wax or something like that to give it even more of that finish and more protectant. However, what we chose to do, because the finish was honestly mirror-like, we went ahead and opted out of the wax because we had the ceramic coat, which does a similar thing. It's another layer of protection the same way that wax is. However, it's just a stronger protectant and it does a lot more.
We also used 2 different pads for the cut and the buff. First pad, medium, light cut, and then the finishing pad. I use Hex Pad. They have like 6 or 7 different pads for all.
If you don't have a buffer, you can still do a detail. It's not a problem. However, I'm always going to recommend that you use a buffer using your hand to apply and rub in the polish and wax. Never going to get you as good of a result as if you had a buffer. However, you can still do incredible things without a buffer.
And get a killer forearm workout in the process. And with that, this has been another episode of Head Ass Garage. I'll see y'all in the next one.